Today's practical is an Eton Mess, and we're going to be looking at the structure of meringues and how we can incorporate air into them as a raising agent. I will also be focusing on the use of an electric whisk and making a fruit coulis to use as a sauce. So with the egg whites, I've already separated these for a previous recipe. I made the creme brulee. So these are now 4 egg whites, so I've doubled the recipe that is shown with the video, and I'm using an electric whisk to trap air. It's very, very important that there's grease-free bowl. If there's grease in the bowl's not quite clean, it will stop the ability for those proteins to start holding onto the air. So egg white is a protein, it's going to coagulate. We're going to denature it with the electric whisk, changing it into a foam. It will be an unstable foam until we bake it, and then obviously you can't then undo that foam. But if it was just a foam, we can, by messing around with it too much, take out that air again and turn it back into a liquid. So it's about trapping as much air as we can into here. So if you break a yolk into the egg white, again, that's a fat, and that will stop the egg white from being able to hold onto those air particles. It's very, very important. No egg yolk and a very, very clean bowl. They're two problems generally why you can't get air to trap and get your egg whites to turn like a foam. I want to start that now, so obviously being careful. I want to make sure that you give these a wiggle, they're not going to fall out. Plugged in at the mains, and we only turn it on when it's inside the bowl. If you've got longer hair than me, then obviously you need to tie that up as well, and we need to keep the cord away as well so it doesn't tangle. And we're going to start whisking this until it turns from a liquid to a solid, and basically be able to hold it above my head. You will notice very quickly that it turns white, but it is still a liquid, so it needs a lot more air for it to turn into a solid. So you've got to do this for a few minutes so that it will trap all of that air and turn it into a solid state. Keep going. You can see now the changes. It starts to take on more and more air. It is changing structure and producing a foam. You don't want to add any of the ingredients until we can hold this bowl above our heads. That's the test. Make sure this is then a solid. It's still a liquid. It's going to slide out under your head. If I had to show you now, there is still a slide. So you can see in the bowl, if I can move, it's moving with the bowl, but it is going more solid. So I'm just going to keep going. Not moving. Do I do the test? Can I check that it's not gonna move? So that's the easiest way to see that it's a solid. So you can just do this and turn it to the side to make sure, but it's always quite fun to be able to hold it over your head. You've just got that worry that it might all fall out. So we've now got the meringue, or the egg white, sorry, to start turning it into meringue. And we don't want to add all the sugar at once. The heaviness of that sugar could knock out the air. So we want to be putting a spoonful in at a time, just sprinkling it around, but we do continue to use the electric whisk. And you'll notice the more sugar that we add in, the glossier it will go. It will become a very, very shiny, shiny product. I'm using golden caster sugar as well, so it will give it a little bit more of a caramelly appearance rather than if you use pure white caster sugar, you get a much glossier finish. I'm using golden caster just because that's what I've got hold on. Much more to go now. So whilst we're doing this, it may be worth as well making sure that you've got a grease-proof paper on a baking tray. We are not going to pipe these today because they're going into an Eton Mess. They are going to be crunched up, so we're just going to put dollops of the meringue onto here for them to be baked, and we will preheat the oven to 120 degrees, so that's gas mark 1. Last bit of sugar going in now. Right, so now we have got a much glossier mix. Mine has got that slight tinge to it because I'm using golden caster sugar. And you can then pop that into a piping bag with a nozzle. You can squirt it around. You could do a huge one for a pavlova, so you could just squirt that all the way around. You can do it freehand as well, so you could just put all the meringue into the centre and then almost hollow the middle bit out, so you can then put cream of fruit in it for a pavlova, or do the same with individual ones. For this recipe, as I said, we are going to be breaking them up. So they don't expand too much in the oven. So you can put them next to each other, just don't have them touching. So I'm using heaped spoonfuls and popping these onto the baking tray next to each other. All the way along. And what I'll do is I'll finish this off and I'll come back to you when we pop them into the oven, and I'll explain timings as well. Now that the meringue is on the baking tray, these are going to go into the oven, as I said, 120, gas mark 1. It's a really low heat, and we just want those to crisp up very slowly. I put them onto a higher heat, you will crisp up the outsides, but the centres will be very, very gooey. So we want these to be crunchy because we're going to be crumbling them. So it will take about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes for them to be completely solid and be able to peel off the greaseproof paper. So when they're ready to come out the oven, I'll come back to you and we'll show you how to construct the rest of the Eton Mess as well. The meringues have now had just over an hour in the oven, so I'm going to take them out to show you what they look like, and then we're going to leave these to cool and we can move on with the other steps of preparation for the Eton Mess. So as you can see, they are slightly golden, and the idea is these are very hot, so be careful doing something similar to what I'm doing, is they should just completely lift off the greaseproof paper as easy as that, and tap and sound very hollow. That means that they're going to be crunchy all the way through, which will be easier to break up. So these now need to be left to cool, and then we can move on to the coulis and preparing the Eton Mess. Whilst the meringues continue to cool, I'm going to now prepare the fruit coulis. So I did a strawberry coulis today, and also the strawberries that will then be kept whole and mixed in with the Eton Mess. So what I've got, I've already prepared and chopped up quite a lot of the strawberries. I'm just going to show you how to do a couple more. These ones are going to be used for the coulis, and then I've got extra strawberries that we're going to keep separate, slice them, obviously hull them, but they will then be mixed in whole into the product. And then finally we will whip the cream. So for the strawberries, hulling, we want to just make sure that you pull the stalk up as high as you can so that you don't waste any of the actual flesh of the strawberry. And we're just going to use claw grip to just snip that off. And then we're going to just pop them into either 4 or 8 pieces depending on the strawberry. We're just cutting that quite small just to save when we're trying to blend them, so it makes it easier. And then same again, that one, using a lot of claw grip, and pop them in. I'm going to just rinse this now under the water because obviously these aren't organic, so pesticides, herbicides will have been used on these, so it's just worth rinsing them just to make sure that there's nothing on the surface before you eat them. So rinse this and then we will make the fruit coulis. I'm going to add the strawberries just into a large cereal bowl. And then what I'm using is a hand blender. So the hand blender's got the spinning blade at the bottom that disconnects to be washed. Obviously this has got the connected to the electric, so it just wipe down. And the biggest thing is about keeping it submerged when you're trying to use it. If you keep lifting it out, that blade will continue to spin just for a couple of seconds. It will spit out and it'll make a mess of anything that's surrounding you. So keeping it downwards, holding it before you. So every time I press right the way down till I hit the bowl and then a stop. Moving it around until all the lumps of strawberries have gone. Now there's none visible, I'm just moving it around that liquid just to make sure that I've got every single one. So hopefully now that's a nice smooth strawberry or blended strawberry. What I'm going to do is then add in a tablespoon of icing sugar. So obviously if you do more, you need to increase the amount of sugar that you put in as well. But this just sweetens it, it just takes that slight tang away. So you're going to pop that in and then stir that icing sugar around. It does slightly thicken it if you use quite a lot of it as well. I'm not using too much because these strawberries are actually quite nice and sweet. Might be worth trying your strawberries first. If they've got that little bit of bitterness, you might need to use more sugar. But it's all about your own taste. So tablespoon is recommended, but if you taste it and you think it's still a bit bitter, then put a little bit more sugar in. So that now is a lovely pouring coulis that we can use to dress our Eton Mess. So that's done. Now the next thing I'm going to do is prepare the rest of the strawberries and just set them to the side. So exactly the same as before, lifting up the stalk to hull the strawberry. Then I'm going to cut it, but we're going to cut them just into 4 this time so that they're in larger pieces because we want those to be seen, we want to have those different textures in the Eton Mess. So I'll continue to do this and then I'll come back when we're ready to whip the cream and show you how to construct the Eton Mess to finish. Going to whip the cream. So I'm just using a double cream here. You can't ever use a single cream, but you can use double or whipping cream to be able to get that thick consistency and trap air in it. So I've got that into here and we're going to use the electric whisk, the same that we used to make the meringues, just to trap air again. So it's mechanical agitation still. This is a protein, it is a cream, so it's mechanical agitation to denature that cream so that it really thickens. By trapping that air, it's also aeration, so we're looking at it almost in the way that air is used in cakes with the trapping of air and are used as a raising agent. We're using it here, but obviously it will denature and change it into a thick cream. Obviously it will make air bubbles to start with, but then you will notice the consistency will start to change. Just be careful not to over whip the cream, because as you over whip it, you will start to separate the fat and the oil molecules in the cream, and as you turn it into butter, so it will look like it's curdled to start with. So you have to be really careful that you don't over whip the cream. Because this is a dessert and obviously there's different elements in there, we are going to sweeten the cream very slightly by just adding another spoonful of the icing sugar, 2 spoonfuls of icing sugar into there. So all I'm going to do now is literally just whip that just to mix it for a Now we are ready to construct our Eton Mess. So I've got the sauce. I'm going to drizzle over the top. I'll do that in layers. If I pull that forward, you can see. I've got the double cream. I have the meringues, so I'll just show you with a couple of meringues. I'm just using, just for presentation purposes, a glass so that you can see all the different layers as I build them up, and also the strawberries. So you can start whichever way round you want. You just want to make sure that the top has got quite a lot of colour on it. So I'm just going to crush some of the meringue into the bottom, crumbling that up. Add a few strawberries. Heap of cream. And then a drizzle, get another spoon of the coulis over the top. And then repeat. So a bit more of the meringue going in. It's really crumbling everywhere. Add some more strawberries in. If we can get them into the cup. Another heap of cream on the top. Drizzle of sauce. It all pours down. I'm going to really crumble up on the top some meringue for presentation, and I'm going to top with one final strawberry. And there is your Eton Mess, made completely from scratch, learning about how we trap air, looking at aeration as a raising agent in the meringues, but also revisiting and looking at denaturing of proteins.